Welcome to part 46 of our series, Secrets of Glessner House. In this installment, we will explore the Glessners' dinner parties, from setting the table to preparing the guest list, with a detailed look at a few memorable meals. The recent recreation of the dining room furniture, discussed in our previous Secrets video, has allowed us to authentically set the dining room for the first time since the Glessners died in the 1930s. Here we see the table set for a dinner of 12 during Christmas 2024. Frances Glessner was known for her hospitality, and a carefully planned and executed dinner was essential to making her guests feel welcome. John Glessner wrote after her passing, "When the new University of Chicago was started and the staff drawn from all over the world with their families, all cultivated people but strangers to each other, she made life more bearable by social attentions. These and the world's fair gentlefolks found ever a cordial welcome at our doors, and every Sunday afternoon and many a weekday evening found a room full of gentlefolks and a table full of appreciative guests." The Glessners came from middle-class families in central Ohio, so it was not until 1874, when they moved into their Washington Street house on Chicago's near west side, that they started to develop their skills for formal entertaining. They remodeled their dining room into a distinctive and artistic environment, with built-in cabinets, shelving, and an elaborate fireplace mantel, all designed and carved by their good friend, Isaac Scott. It was here that they entertained architect Henry Hobson Richardson when he came to Chicago in May 1885 to see their recently purchased lot on Prairie Avenue. The dinner included asparagus, cream soup, claret, baked whitefish with New Orleans sauce, cucumbers, radishes, spring chicken, peas, gooseberry sauce, pickles, olives, cheese salad, crackers, almonds, champagne, strawberry shortcake, apricots, cherries, strawberries, and coffee. Richardson commented on the shortcake, noting it was the nicest thing he ever ate. It was at the dining room table, between dinner and dessert, that Richardson requested a pencil and paper, sketching out the innovative floor plan of the Glessners' new house, as seen here. The story is often recounted incorrectly, stating that Richardson sketched the floor plan on a napkin, but of course the Glessners only used fine linen napkins. For the new house, Richardson designed a larger oak-paneled dining room with a table that could accommodate 18 people. At the north end, a wood-burning fireplace, faced in 16th century Isnick tiles, provided the cozy feeling Frances Glessner requested of her new house. The plaster panels of the ceiling were covered in 23-karat gold leaf, a detail they had seen in Richardson's own library. Eschewing the use of a chandelier, the gold reflected the light from the wall sconces, casting a soft light onto the table. The light would be enhanced with the use of candles. Here we see the silver candelabras stored on the sideboard, with their decorative silk shades that were typically used. Bertha Palmer, the Queen of Chicago society, shown here with her castle on Lakeshore Drive, set the standard for Gilded Age elegance in the city. Her elaborate dinner parties, with liveried footmen and gold dishes, were frequently covered in the newspapers. But this was not the style of entertaining the Glessners were seeking. After attending an 1896 dinner in honor of Robert Todd Lincoln, hosted by the Palmers in their art gallery, Frances Glessner wrote in her journal, "The whole thing was costly and ostentatious. We made up our minds that we like better small, unpretentious dinners, where people are brought together for the pleasure of meeting each other, and not to fill a table or room which seats a certain number of people." The Glessners tended to surround themselves with creative types, artists, musicians, authors, and architects. Among their frequent and most beloved guests, shown from the left, were architect Herman von Holst, harpist Enrico Tremonti, and author F. Hopkinson Smith. Frances Glessner followed the advice of Christine Terhune Herrick, as written in her 1892 book, The Little Dinner. Herrick writes, "One cardinal principle should govern the giver of small dinners. She should only ask such guests as will be, in the highest sense of the word, worthwhile. Life is too short for busy people to waste any portion of it in cultivating uncongenial acquaintances. Uninteresting people doubtless have their uses in the great economy of nature, but their place of service is not at the dinner table. How guests were seated at the table was also of great importance. Here we see a seating chart prepared by Francis Glessner for Christmas dinner in 1911. Etiquette of the day dictated that you would only speak to the people seated to either side of you. So Francis Glessner would have to consider what dinner guests had in common with each other. It would have been considered vulgar to talk to someone across the table. Francis Glessner was a competent cook and amassed a collection of nearly 100 cookbooks, which she kept in the library for easy reference. It was also in the library that she would meet with the cook to review the menus for the day. In 1892, she began keeping a journal with her bills of fare. A typical menu, such as this example from January 1895, would consist of 8 courses. The book would be used by the cook to shop for and prepare the meal. Francis Glessner would also reference the book so she could see what was served to a guest when they had visited previously. The Glessners included ice cream on almost every dinner menu. A luxury item in its day, it was even more so with the Glessners, as it was always served in molded shapes. More than 20 different shapes have been identified in the menus, with the calla lily shown here being among the most common. It appears that the Century Cookbook, published by Mary Ronald in 1896, was Francis Glessner's favorite cookbook, given the homemade dust jacket she made to replace the original. Although a dinner might consist of 8 courses, Ronald stressed the importance of not having the meal extend for too long a period of time. She wrote, "2 hours is the extreme limit of time that should be given to a dinner. 1 hour and a quarter, or a half, is preferable. 8 courses served quickly, but without seeming haste, take as much time as most people can sit at the table without fatigue. Last impressions are as enduring as first ones, so it is important not to surfeit, for when fatigue enters into so-called pleasure, failure begins." The proper setting of the table, overseen by the butler, was an important part of the experience. The Glessners selected a simple and elegant design for their china, consisting of a thin scalloped gold rim on a plain white body. The dinner service, which included 10 pieces per place setting, was made by Copeland Spode in England and was retailed through Marshall Field and Company. The Glessners added their stylized monogram to each piece, the spiral design of the initials, possibly influenced by the wrought iron grillwork designed by Richardson for the front door of the house. They had several other sets of plates and bowls that could be used for various courses. Here we see an example of salad plates by Wedgwood at left, dinner plates by Royal Worcester at center, and soup bowls by Minton at right. The elaborate dessert plates at left are by Copeland. The transferware plates at right are unmarked, but date to the 1840s, indicating they were likely family pieces passed down to them. Their sterling silver flatware was as simple as their main set of dinnerware. The severely plain pattern, known as antique, was made by Gorham and was sold through the high-end Chicago retailer Spalding and Company. Each place setting consisted of 12 pieces, including 4 forks, 3 spoons, and 5 knives, each with a specific purpose. When the Glessner's daughter Frances was married in 1898, they purchased the same pattern of silver flatware for her. This allowed them to borrow extra pieces from her as needed, so that everything on their table would match. We will now look briefly at a few dinners. On April 10, 1893, the Glessners hosted a dinner for the world-famous Polish pianist Ignacy Jan Paderewski. He was accompanied by his secretary, Hugo Gerlitz, who discovered he was to be seated next to the attorney Sigmund Zeisler, the defender of the 8 Haymarket anarchists. Gerlitz took Francis Glessner to the side and said, Mrs. Glessner, I cannot sit the evening through by that odious man. To me, he is intolerable." She quickly rearranged the seating chart, placing her 15-year-old daughter next to Zeisler. According to the family journal, Paderewski praised, ate, and enjoyed the dinner. On December 7, 1895, the Glessners celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary with a small dinner consisting of just the 4 family members. As Frances Glessner noted, "We did not want it generally known, for it always seems a bid for gifts." John Glessner wore his wedding suit and received a silver loving cup from his wife, shown on the left. The 2 children presented their parents with the silver water pitcher, shown on the right. An unexpected surprise was the presentation of 2 sauce ladles from the servants by the butler Frederick Reynolds. The ladles were accompanied by a card which read, "With the best wishes of the servants," followed by their names arranged according to the length of time they had been with the family. After dinner, the Glessners asked all the servants to come into the dining room so they could be thanked for the gift. Frances Glessner had the greeting and servants' names engraved on the ladle. Christmas dinner that year was for 9 people, including the Belgian violinist Martin Marsick, who was in the midst of his first tour of the United States. Frances Glessner wrote that he enjoyed his dinner extremely, praising everything and pronouncing the salad a poem. He returned the next day to show Fanny his violins, as she was then taking lessons. Christmas dinner included 2 items which were common on the Glessner menus. The first course was almost always oysters on the half-shell. Fresh oysters were readily available in Chicago by this time, due to the advent of the refrigerated railroad car, developed by their meat packer neighbors on Prairie Avenue. Another item on the menu is chicken timbale. A timbale consisted of minced meat and vegetables cooked in a mold. The 2 illustrations shown here, taken from Frances Glessner's cookbooks, show that they could be elaborately decorated with truffles or pickles, or, as seen at right, the mold could be lined with different types of macaroni, the generic term for pasta at the time. In April 1909, John Glessner gave a dinner for 63 members of the Commercial Club. This was an unusual dinner in that it was attended only by men, although Frances was present to greet the guests, who gathered in the upstairs hall. The corner guest room was cleared of its beds, and cocktails were served there. Highlights of the dinner included gumbo, shad roe, fried chicken, and cheese balls rolled in nuts. The Glessners hosted 2 dinners and 2 suppers for the entire Chicago Symphony Orchestra between 1903 and 1913. The first dinner, held in 1903, was for 100 guests, seated at tables in the dining room, library, hall, and parlor, as shown in the red box. The menu included mutton broth, white fish, fillet of beef, and ice cream in the form of musical instruments. The music director, Theodore Thomas, provided his recipe for punch, consisting of champagne and 2 types of wine, which was served in the silver and yellow rice bowl acquired by the Glessners at the World's Columbian Exposition. The Glessners hosted a supper for the orchestra on New Year's Day, 1909, which was also Frances Glessner's 61st birthday. Supper refers to a less formal meal, so the menu included things like chicken salad, salted nuts, sandwiches, and baking powder biscuits with honey and jam. It is interesting to read Frances Glessner's note that 300 cigars were smoked that evening. On January 1, 1913, Frances Glessner Lee presented her mother with an inch-to-the-foot scale model of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra she had made herself. The Glessners invited the members of the orchestra to dinner later that month so that the musicians could see how they had been depicted in the model. Frederick Stock was music director at this time and had written out the music for each of the miniature musicians in the model. The tables, again spread throughout the first floor, were decorated with flowers, fancy cakes, and candy baskets. The 4-course menu consisted of chicken soup with whipped cream and crescent rolls, casseroles of guinea fowl with hominy, vegetable salad, hot sausage, and ice cream in the shape of fruits. The listing of food used included 50 pounds of soup meat, 24 guinea fowl, 35 pounds of deerfoot sausage, 21 pounds of grapes, and 66 quarts of wine. The cost of $900 would be the equivalent of more than $28,000 today, and included the food, servers, flowers, and the rental of furniture, dishes, and linen. We hope you have enjoyed learning more about how the Glessners planned and executed their dinners, both large and small, and the individuals that were invited to share a meal with them. And remember, the dining room is now available for rentals, if you would like to host a memorable dinner of your own. Tune in next time when another secret will be revealed.